Hello, we're going to go over some expectations here for Folktale Illustrations. So at this point you have completed writing your story and you're ready to move on to the next step. Now, there are some specific rules that you must follow when creating these illustrations. So we'll go over a couple of them here before we get started. The first is that you cannot use pen, pencil, anything of that nature to write and or trace items for this project. That's right. You are only using scissors and glue. That is it. So that's the first and foremost important rule. We're going to go through and discuss some other rules as well. The first has to do with the colors that you are using for your project. You're going to select a dark color, a bold color, a pale color, and then a white color. So you have a little bit of flexibility and creativity regarding the colors that you choose. There will be stations set up in our classroom that we will rotate around to make sure that we select the appropriate colors. Now, when you're selecting your colors, make sure that you use the color wheel. We've gone over this in art class at this point. Make sure that you're using things that complement one another. For instance, an example of complementary colors would be the color green and then red because they are opposite of one another on the color wheel. Now, there's some best practices that we must follow. Make sure that you're using simple shapes. This makes your life easy because you're not creating a massive headache for yourself. Also, consider layering the pieces of construction paper. This will give you a great effect because you can layer different colors on top of one another to make more depth within your pictures. Now, remember to only use scissors to cut the construction paper. We talked about this earlier. Again, you cannot use any pens, pencils, or any other writing implements. Only scissors. Now, another thing, remember the storybook view. You're not looking down on the image like if you were on some type of online map service. You're looking at it in the storybook view. So you're going to end up using what is known as linear perspective, which we'll go over here in a few moments. Now, your illustrations. This is the order in which you will create your illustrations. So you're starting out with Danger 1 and then you're working on down through the title page. So as you do your illustrations, you will become better at this process. So again, you're starting out with Danger 1 and then you're working down through until you arrive at the title page. The title page is what you will do last. The reason why is because you will have run out of materials at this point. So you want to make sure that you put the most detail in your dangers, and then after that, talking about your stranger, and then your leaving home, returning home slides. Those are actually going to be the same, except that your leaving home side, the house will be on the left, and then returning home, the house will be on the right. Now, with the danger pictures, you want to make sure that you use a dark background. Remember, your protagonist is in life-threatening danger, so you want to use points or sharp edges to showcase that danger. Within the danger pictures, your danger should be big and your protagonist should be little. Now again, we talked about how each of your dangers gets progressively worse. Your first danger is going to be, your danger is still going to be big, but as you continue along through, danger 3 should be a larger size than danger 1, because again, the dangers that your protagonist encounters are more aggressive, more lethal, more deadly as you continue on. Now, one thing you want to consider here is number 4. Make sure to use diagonal lines for motion or tension. This helps to elevate the emotional feel that the viewer will get when looking at your folktale. Another thing to consider is where you're placing the strangers. Consider placing the stranger up high and the protagonist down low within your image to again showcase the fact that we're not sure what's going to happen to your protagonist. We don't know yet that your stranger is a friend. So, one more thing here, and that has to do with the cover page. Think dramatic, big versus small, light versus dark, or perhaps one large shape that is relevant to your story. Now, It's also wise to show an important part of your story within the cover page. This also qualifies as an element of foreshadowing. Within the cover page, make sure to keep the pictures simple and then keep the title short. The reason why you want to keep the title short is because you are cutting out your letters. So, don't make yourself work harder than you have to. Keep your title short, one, perhaps two words, and then your name since you are the author. Now, earlier we talked about linear perspective. Here is an image that showcases linear perspective very well. It's a pretty simple concept. Basically, there is a vanishing point. So if we look at this image here, the red lines converge onto one specific point. Now, if we look at the trees in the foreground or in front of us are larger than the trees further back in the image. So this is again an example of linear perspective. Now, here's a real life example with some bicycles. As you can see here, the line in the road converges onto a vanishing point, and we see that the bicycles appear smaller, even though we know that for a majority of these bicycles they use the 700C wheel size, so everything is the same. Now, here are some examples of student projects that we're going to go over and discuss. The first here is of a bird. Now, this would be a danger. There's a couple things that make this work really well. The first are the fact that these feathers are, again, layered. So you have the color, you have the black outline, and then you have that red, or not red, sorry, that orange element in the center there. And that, again, with the fact that they've taken their scissors and just cut random diagonal lines in that shows us motion. Another thing that works really well is the use of the triangle repeatedly. So we see the beak of the creature, that is a large triangle that was cut out, and then the talons or the claws of this creature are also triangles as well. So we are repeating those geometric shapes showing this particular danger. Now, this particular student has not included their protagonist yet in this image. This was under construction when this was taken. However, this shows us how large this danger is. It takes up almost 75% of the page, which works well then to convey the fact that our protagonist might not live through this particular danger. Now, this here is another danger, and this is a bridge, and our protagonist is the white figure there on the left-hand side, and we can see that this particular image here contains our four colors, just as our previous one did, and we see that this particular bridge is very scary. We have those porcupine side pieces and then these skulls on either side of the bridge there. So this is another great example of the use of the four colors in a danger setting. Now, we'll look at one final example here, and in this case, we have a large mountain that the protagonist needs to travel through. Now, the protagonist got a little cut off from this image. He's down there in the, or he or she is down there in the left-hand side, and this protagonist needs to travel through this mountain pass here. So again, we have a great example of the four colors used. This student really chose a nice set of colors there. This magenta color really makes these dark mountains pop out from the image there. And then in the upper left-hand corner, we do have a sun or a moon there. We're going to assume that it's a moon in this case because that creates, or that tells us that it is nighttime. So again, within the mountain here, we have a great use of that almost like a turquoise color there to show that there are faces or evil creatures lurking within the mountain. So our protagonist needs to go through this mountain pass and they need to continue on their journey. So again, these are some examples of how you can use your four colors to create folktale illustrations. Now, we might have an additional video giving some further examples. We'll see how time permits here, but this is the overview video of what you need to do to be successful with your illustrations.